all said and done, you could have Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor on the Jarrell Miller Anthony Joshua card in June if all goes according to plan. Katie Taylor and Rose Vellante should put on a good show, and Taylor, if she comes out to win, I truly believe she can because of her overall speed and power for a person who's 5'5". I think that in the long run, it'll be for great storytelling, and knowing boxing, they can probably make it happen just because of how, wild boxing can be. You also have a couple extra fights going on this week in the boxing world in Pennsylvania, but Farmer versus Carroll is something to look out for, and Katie Taylor versus Vellante. Katie Taylor should win, and if anything, Farmer should pick up the victory. You also have this weekend Errol Spence Jr. versus Mikey Garcia for the IBF welterweight title. Both fighters have an undefeated record of 24-0 and 39-0. 24 is Errol Spence Jr. and Mikey Garcia is 39-0. That fight can go either way, and it's truly one of boxing's best super fights they can put on. And it's about time that momentum is picked up for the boxing world leading up to the summer of great fights featuring Jarrell Miller and Anthony Joshua, among others. This fight can go either way. Hard to really point a winner. But with the overall state of boxing right now, it's hard to say. Errol Spence Jr. right now has 21 wins via knockout, and Mikey Garcia has 30 wins via knockout. So it's going to be a big slugfest. But Mikey Garcia, his last 3 fights have been unanimous decision wins, and before then he had 4 wins via KO out of 5 fights. But Errol Spence Jr. has had he's had 9 knockout wins in a row, or not in a row per se, but they've been fairly close. You had a Lamont Peterson RTD win in the 7th round, ref decision. But I think that with all that is said and done, boxing will look bright with Errol Spence Jr. and Mikey Garcia. And if I had to pick out a winner in this, I would have to go with the champion here. While Mikey Garcia is one of the best fighters going on today, I think that Errol Spence Jr.'s overall resume, when you're really talking about his last few fights, speaks for itself. Chris Algieri, Kell Brook, Lamont Peterson, Carlos Ocampo, Leonard Bondu, Samuel Vargas. Mikey Garcia's recent fights have been Robert Easter Jr., Sergey Lipintus, Adrian Broner. So I'm pointing out the difference in the age and the experience factor. I think Spence Jr. can pull off the win in this fight, and it should be one hell of a weekend for boxing. And then on Sunday, you have Michael Conlan in action inside MSG's Hulu Theater against Ruben Garcia. That is not the main event. It's a featured bout for St. Patrick's Day weekend because it's Michael Conlan. But it's considered the main event, even though the main event is Luis Collazo against Samuel Vargas, which I'll give the fight to Vargas here and now. Not many people will pay attention to this bout, as good as it may be, just because Michael Conlan is in action and he's the premier fighter in this situation. Conlan's 10-0, and he's looking to continue his streak. And something that's interesting on it is his original opponent in the Olympic Games, or the championship games of boxing, was Vladimir Nikitin. And Nikitin, if I'm saying that name right, is 2-0 in boxing, and he beat Michael Conlan in the opening round tournament, but he ended up losing due to the damage he sustained. He had to get out of the tournament due to damage he sustained against Michael Conlan. So I'm not sure what he's going to try to prove if he beats Juan Tapia, Vladimir. But if he beats Tapia, he wants Conlan. And I think that's very interesting to talk about, because if you have a fighter who's beaten him already in competition, why would you want to face the guy you already beat? And my assumption is because Michael Conlan's already surpassed him in the boxing world at such a young age for professional-wise, that I think Vladimir wants to prove himself that it wasn't a fluke, and that Vladimir, because it was technically a controversial decision during the Olympic or during the championship games, and I think that Nikitin wants to prove himself that Conlon is not the next big thing, even though he has proven himself to be that. So that is a very interesting scenario to look out for in regards to Sunday's boxing fight. And it's definitely something that will entice you to stay inside the Hulu Theater to really get you going for this entire weekend of boxing. And then the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme, the piece of resistance, you have UFC Fight Night taking place in London. You went from pro wrestling to boxing to UFC, which is how we normally do it in today's day and age. I'm not sure if there's a Bellator card. I don't think there is this weekend, which is good for them. But it's also keeping up momentum for UFC Fight Night. The main event, you have Darren Till versus Jorge Masvidal in a welterweight bout, as I stated. Darren Till is coming off a loss to Tyron Woodley, and Jorge is currently on a 2-fight losing streak. So both fighters need to actually get a great win here in order to be in consideration for title contention by Kamaru Usman, even though Usman will be busy with Colby Covington, among other factors, maybe even the Tyron Woodley rematch. But before then, the loss to Tyron Woodley, Darren Till was on a 4-fight win streak, defeating Stephen Thompson, Donald Cerrone, Bojan Belkovic, and Jezin Ayari. So it'll be interesting to see Darren Till, how he reacts after getting destroyed by Tyron Woodley, to be honest. And Masvidal lost to Stephen Thompson, Damian Maia, but before then he was on a 3-fight winning streak, defeating Donald Cerrone, Jake Ellenberger, and Ross Pearson. So either way, it'll be an interesting bout between two behemoths. I truly believe that Masvidal will win this bout. I don't know why, but I think his overall style will defeat Till, and I think Till is too ahead of himself, too emotional in this bout. So that's where I'm really lying on with Masvidal. Leon Edwards versus Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson's a very revered fighter, currently 30 years old, 29 years old recently in July, but now he's 30. He is on a 1-fight winning streak after defeating Alex Oliveira, and Leon Edwards is currently on a 6-fighting winning streak after defeating Donald Cerrone. Wow, Donald Cerrone's around here a lot. Kind of crazy. Leon Edwards, I believe, will win this bout just because of the momentum that he has. Gunnar Nelson, while he's heralded by many, I think that he is someone that needs some more work, and I don't think that fight against Edwards will help him any more than it needs to. Now, there's not that much of a good fight card, if we're being honest here. The prelims aren't that exciting unless you like Danny Henry and Dan Age, and Mark Diakese against Joseph Duffy. Joseph Duffy is very interesting in this situation because Joseph Duffy is 7-0. No, that's his boxing record. Is 16-3 after losing to James Vick, which I thought was going to be a good match, but ended up not quite being a good bout. But Mark, on the other hand, is on a 12-3 run with a 3-fight losing streak. So Joseph Duffy should win this bout. Again, these prelims aren't that great, but the one match I want to look out for, you have Nathaniel Wood against Jose Alberto Quinones. I think that's a good bout. But the real bout to look out for is Volkan Oezdemir against Dominic Reyes. Oezdemir is currently 15-3. He lost to Anthony Smith and Daniel Cormier when Cormier was the light heavyweight champion and Smith was the light heavyweight contender recently. Before then, he was on a 5-fight win streak. He was 10-0 to start his career, which is great. But Volkan at 29 is facing someone in Dominic Reyes, who is 29 as well, who is on a 10-fight winning streak, recently defeating Ovince St. Preux at UFC 229 back in October. In an incredible display of athleticism, even though it lasted all 3 rounds, Reyes dominated the entire fight. Now, if Reyes wins, he'll be a straight contender for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship, which is already crowded when you consider you have Thiago Santos and Johnny Walker in the mix. John Jones defeated Anthony Smith. Now, John Jones can either face Daniel Cormier again, or he can face Brock Lesnar, but I think that Cormier is getting the Brock Lesnar fight. Whatever, I don't think that should be a thing, but if Thiago Santos does not get the Jones fight at light heavyweight, it is criminal. It is an utter travesty that he does not get that fight. It's just like the Curtis Blades situation at heavyweight when he lost to Francis Ngannou, even though he shouldn't have fought Francis Ngannou in the first place after his snore fight against Derek Lewis. Now, if there was another challenger for Thiago Santos, Dominic Reyes is the next challenger if he was to beat Volkan. And that is it. It's either Reyes or Thiago Santos. That is absolutely the only thing you should do. Now, will the UFC listen? Probably not. But I'm not in charge of the UFC, I guess. And that's, I guess, unfortunate if you're booking it the way I want to book it. But they know what they're doing, as they say. And in the long run, this card, while isn't quite good, quote unquote, it can surprise you. That's all I can really say. The three main bouts that I'm looking forward to: Masvidal, Edwards, and Reyes, and along with Joseph Duffy as the fourth bout that'll be on the side. Those were the DraftKings bets that I would really consider doing down the line. That is all that is going on this weekend. It feels like every weekend is something big and it's great. Some are not so good cards, some are great cards, some can surprise you, some will just bore you. And with the streaming services, you have opportunities to choose now. You have DAZN this weekend, you have Fox Sports Go this weekend, and you have ESPN and the ESPN Plus app. I think that it's a great time to be a combat sports fan. And I gotta say, we're too lucky right now with all of the stuff that's going on. A couple months back, none of this was possible, and it's just great to watch all of this. Well, I won't ramble any further. I think that I've done enough as time goes on. But before I go, I just wanted to say, make sure to follow me on DGS_main event at Double G Sports and at Dan YANOFSKY on Twitter. For all your combat sports needs, I will be very active this weekend. I will also be at the FDNY, yes, Fire Department in New York, boxing bout at Hulu Theater inside Madison Square Garden. Last night was the NYPD event. So it's a great start to all of boxing. I don't know who's on the card. Nobody really knows who's on the card. But it's just a really fun matchup between people who are brothers at arms. So I find that very entertaining. Stay tuned for all the upcoming news regarding boxing, MMA, and pro wrestling. As WrestleMania comes closer and closer, expect more coverage on that, more interviews down the line, maybe a few guests if we're lucky. Once again, my name is Dan Yanofsky, Double G Sports Speaker Radio, the main event. And if you're not down with everything that I just said, I just got 2 words for you. See you around.